So, the topic for today is why do women date jerks? Why do women date jerks? Why? I think we are all ready to get started here today on today's episode of the Aligned and Confident Dating Podcast with me, your host, Colette Gallagher. Maybe you are one of these women who date jerks. Maybe it's someone you know and you just can't understand why the heck they would choose someone like that. Maybe it's somebody that you love, someone close to you. So excited for today's episode, and let's get started. We're going to talk about why women date jerks and what we can do to not date jerks and to just change our whole dating dynamic. When I was 14 years old, my mom introduced me to my third stepfather. The first time I met him, he made up this outrageous story, and I could not understand why she didn't see that he was lying. And he was talking about how he had drove across country and he lost all his stuff, and he had this successful business but lost all his equipment and the movers stole it, and then he got here and now he doesn't have any money. And so I was just like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right? So it's so easy as an outsider looking in to be like, that guy's a jerk. But then why does it happen, right? Because none of us set out and ask, like, please send me a jerk. That is what I'm looking for, right? Nobody starts out that way. The guy doesn't usually start off as a jerk, right? He usually starts off pretty nice, hopefully. But the thing is, there's three main reasons why women date jerks. One is they're not actually looking to settle down, but he's really hot and attractive. So our hormones actually get in our way when we are looking to date, because our hormones want the best match genetically, but he might not always be like the nicest guy, right? So during the time of ovulation, science has proven this, that we tend to be attracted to men that would be good mates for, good baby making material, basically. But, and we actually think that they are nice, that they're going to be good fathers, even if logically there's no evidence pointing towards that direction. Another reason why women date jerks is because they like the chase. Women actually, this is another scientific study where they found that women actually like the chase. It's just funny because if you ask us, I think most women would say, oh, I love being chased. Like, I love a guy coming after me. But in actual studies, women actually don't like being chased. Another reason why women date jerks is because they have a fantasy in their head. And so they have this fantasy of what their dream guy looks like and what he does for a living. And so they have this whole scenario in their head about this guy, right? Maybe they saw a picture of him and now they have this whole story of why he's the perfect match for them. And I've been guilty of this before, where I barely knew the guy and I all of a sudden thought he was like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that I want to date and be with. And I knew nothing about him. And then usually they end up being total jerks. So a lot of times women are dating because they're bored or lonely. And so they're at home and they're like, man, my friends are with someone. My friends have these great partners. Where's my partner? And they're feeling kind of lonely. And this is the worst place to date from. So if you're dating from a place where you're super bored or super lonely, then you're probably going to attract a guy who doesn't treat you as well as they could, because you're just wanting to go out with somebody. And so you'll probably put up with more than you would if you weren't bored and lonely and you were dating from a full cup. And so I heard this analogy and I just love it. It's like when you're hungry, you'll pretty much eat anything, right? It doesn't matter if it's bad for you. You're driving down the road, there's some fast food, you're like, yes, I'm starving. I'm at this point where I just need something. You're probably not going to make the best choice. You're just going to eat whatever's around. Versus when you're like, okay, I know that there's a lot of choices. I'm going to choose something healthy for me. And you're not coming from this place of starvation. So think about that if you're dating. How can you start to just enjoy your life alone and single and date from this place of a full cup, from being full, and then finding a partner who can complement that and support you in your journey versus someone who's gonna like take away the boredom and loneliness, because newsflash, they can't. Nobody can take that away from you. Another thing that happens, and we talked about this a little bit, is that you're hoping he'll change. So you meet someone, you think he's amazing, he starts off really great, there's a lot of hope and promise, and all of a sudden you start getting red flags. And you're like, what happened? Like, things were going so well, and maybe it's a month or two into dating, and all of a sudden he's starting to change towards you, he's starting to be a little bit different, and you're wondering what happened. And then you just kind of play it off. You're like, okay, well, maybe he's having a bad day. You start to make excuses. And then next thing you know, like, he's getting worse and worse. Like, things are getting worse and worse, and you don't know what happened. You want it to go back to how it was, and it's just not. And you're really disappointed and hurt, and you're just living in this fantasy, hoping that things will go back to the way they were instead of moving on. So that's another thing that happens that's very common in relationships, and it goes along with setting boundaries. So as the woman, it's your job to kind of set the boundaries, and that comes that's with all aspects of the relationship. So that's with sleeping together, that's with how often you see him, that's with what you will and will not tolerate. And I'm not saying turn into like some crazy control freak or anything like that, but it's really important to have your boundaries, because if you start letting him treat you badly, he's going to think it's fine, and it is going to get worse and worse. And so it's really important that you calmly and collectively explain to him that the way he's treating you isn't okay with you. And maybe you need to create some space and some distance. And maybe you start, say, hanging out with your friends more. So again, making sure you're not dating from a place of loneliness, so that you have something to do if he decides that he's not going to treat you well. And so always in that place of being willing to walk away when things aren't going well. Another reason that women date jerks is because maybe they weren't treated well, by their parents. And so their idea of love isn't very loving, actually. And so maybe their parents, kind of manipulated them into doing what they want. Maybe their parents yelled and screamed. Maybe their parents called them names, and so they're used to being treated really poorly. And so they think that that's normal. They think that that is love, and they don't know any different, right? And so they just think, okay, well, this guy, that's how people are. They get mad, they yell, they ignore me, they call me names. So for some people, that's just normal part of a relationship with somebody, is being treated really badly. Another reason women date jerks is because they're kind of projecting from their parents. So again, if their parents had a problem, let's say one of their parents was an addict or an alcoholic or something, and they were made to feel responsible for their parents' well-being, then but they couldn't help their parents, then they'll find somebody that they can help. And I've done this before too. I've dated fixer-uppers, I guess you would call them, or like guys that I was like trying to help or fix, and that does not work. You can't change anyone, you can't fix anyone, you can't love someone enough, and you hear these stories like, oh, this guy, he was like such in this bad place, and then I loved him enough and he got better, right? But like, the person has to want to get better on their own, and maybe you're a catalyst for that. But don't think someone is going to change just because you love them enough, because all that does is lead to heartbreak. Trust me, I've done it, and it's not fun. So I learned a long time ago not to try to help anyone that does not ask specifically for my help, because all it does is lead to frustration, heartbreak, and sometimes into that spiral of even depression. So the only person you have total control of is yourself. So making sure that you are taking care of yourself and you're putting all of that love that you're like trying to go help and fix someone into just making yourself the best version that you can be and making your life the best version that it can be instead of projecting it onto someone else and trying to heal someone because you couldn't heal your parents. Another reason women date jerks is because they don't think they're worthy of a nice person. So a lot of times, people will have poor self-esteem, poor self-worth, and they think that, they're a bad person. Again, another thing that I've been through, I dated a guy for 2 years and he broke up with me because he said I was too selfish, which is funny because people call you selfish when you're not doing what they want you to do, right? So what is selfish anyway? But I really took it to heart and I was really upset about it. And I really thought like, okay, like I'm selfish. I'm not worth having a good relationship. I'm not worth loving, And so after that, I was dating jerks for a while, not necessarily like, full on name calling jerks, but I was definitely dating guys that were not that into me. I was definitely putting up with things that I definitely should not have been putting up with. And it was because I didn't feel worthy of having a great relationship. Another reason that women date jerks is because they think they're in love with them. And they're not actually in love with them. It's an infatuation. So a lot of times, I mentioned this before, so a lot of times women will become infatuated with a guy that she doesn't know very well. So it happens like this. You go out on a few dates, you are having a great time, maybe you're starting to spend a lot of time together, you're really enjoying each other's company, you're feeling all those yummy butterflies and you're thinking about him all the time. You think of like writing your name and his last name together, things like that, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this guy could be the one, and you've known him 2 weeks, right? So this is not love, even though it feels like it. It's a lot of hormones, a lot of chemicals. There's a lot of stuff going into play here. So you definitely want to make sure that you're not confusing this like yummy butterflies, happy, like, oh my gosh, he's so cute energy with like, wow, this is someone I can really spend my life with. This is someone I can see myself with long term, because you just don't know him well enough yet. And that's another reason women date jerks, is because they jump into relationships with people that they don't know very well. And so you want to really make sure that even though you really want to spend time with them, you're like really like loving the cuddles and you're loving the company, you're loving someone whose focus is on you during your dates, all of that fun stuff that happens when you start dating someone. It's really easy to think like, okay, I'm just going to spend my time with this person. I'm going to stop my activities. I'm going to drop my hobbies. I'm going to hang out with my friends less. Like, don't do that. That's like the last thing you want to do. Keep your hobbies, keep, doing the things you would do, but carve out some time, at least once a week, maybe twice after like a month or two, to spend time with this person. And then slowly, like after you've seen this person in different moods, after you've seen how he is when he's angry, and after you've seen how he is when he's driving in traffic, and after you've seen how he is in different scenarios. How is he with his family? How is he with his friends? How is he with his friends? Like, how is he with his family? So you want to like really see different moods and different sides and different scenarios before you make that commitment. For a lot of us, once we make that commitment, we're committed, even though, they're showing that they're not the right match for us. And then we stay in relationships way too long. So just going slowly at first is really going to help to stop dating jerks, because you'll see the red flags and your hormones won't all be like love blind, right? Like love is blind. So it literally blinds you to the bad things. But if you're not hanging out with the person like all the time, then you'll have time to think and reflect and think about how they treated you and think about if you really want to move forward with this person. So don't jump into a relationship right away. Don't date for potential. Again, so you met this great person, but they have some flaws, but it's okay, and you overlook them. And I've talked to so many people, and I asked them, I said, hey, like when you started dating this person, did you see red flags? And they always say yes, and they always say that they ignored them. And so don't ignore the red flags in the beginning, no matter how cute they are, no matter how much fun you guys have together, no matter how much potential you guys could have of being together. Don't ignore those red flags. And number 3, even though women love to chase the guy, don't let him take the lead, let him plan the dates. I mean, unless it's just something that you really want to do, you have tickets to a concert or something, then maybe. But for the most part, you do not want to be the one chasing. So just, calm down, let the guy chase you, go out and live your life, have fun, enjoy your time, and you will see a huge drop in the amount of jerks that you date. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Aligned and Confident Dating Podcast with me, your host, Colette Gallagher. If you liked this video, please subscribe down below. Hit that like button. I would love to hear your comments. Please leave your comments down below. And please join us in my free Facebook group, the Aligned and Confident Dating Facebook group. I'll post a link in the section below. So please go ahead and join there. I'll be giving you some free stuff, answering your questions, and I would love to see you in there. Have an amazing day, and I will see you next time.